Welcome to our lesson for today. Today we will be talking about review on verbs. So this is just a review from the word review, of course. And I hope that you will learn something. And if you haven't learned this one in your high school days, don't worry. This will serve as your review as well. Okay, so I hope you're ready there because this is going to be a long topic for us today. Okay. So, before we go to our lessons, let's go first to our outline. Unsa atong mga ma-learn today, okay? So, here are the things that we need to learn. Number 1, we are going to learn about... Oops. Nag-una si sir. Wait for a while. Okay. There, okay. So, today we will be talking about 6 things, okay? So, number 1, we will talk about the definition of a verb. Number 2, we will also talk about the 3 types of verbs. Next, we will be talking about the verbs, subjects, and objects. Next, the transitive and intransitive verbs. And number 5, regular and irregular verbs. And number 6, verb tenses conjugation. So, we will include the basic tenses, which is the simple tense, the perfect tense, and the progressive or the continuous tense. Okay? So, let's ask first, what is a verb? We will talk about verb, but we do not know what a verb is. So, unsa din yung verb, Sir Kevin? Now, a verb is the most important word in a sentence. Without it, a sentence could not be complete. Dili mahitabo ang sentence without a verb. Pwede ra gyud og verb ra ang nasa sentence. For example, stop, or go, or shoot. Okay? So that is already a sentence. But try to make a sentence without a verb. You let's say for example, you are watching TV. TV. Oh, diba? It doesn't make sense. So, a sentence has to have a verb for it to be called a sentence. Now, verbs describe what a person or thing is doing or being. Okay? And there are 3 types of verbs that we have to learn, and we will just walk through this because we will talk about this one later. So, the first one is the action verbs. Next is the linking verbs. And next is the helping or the auxiliary verbs. Okay? So, unsa din yung action verbs? The first verb that we are going to talk about is the action verbs. So, unsa ning action verbs? Action verbs are words or verbs that express action or possession. Let's say, for example, here, go, send, watch, write, and see. So, mao na siya atong mga action verbs. Now, before we go to our next topic, we will talk about first the basics of a sentence, okay? Now, as you all know, a subject, if you didn't know yet, a subject is a noun or a pronoun that is doing the action, okay? See, a subject does the action. And all sentences need a subject and a verb. Kinahanglan gyud nga naay subject, naay verb. But many sentences also have an object. Or let's say, for example, here, in our example, the direct object. And for those who were with me in grade 7, you already know what a direct object is. Okay? So, kaning direct object, children, is just the object. Antig the what sa action, sa verb. Okay? And also, there's also what we call indirect objects. An indirect object is the person or thing indirectly affected by the action of the verb. Now, how do we know kung unsa siya? Kung unsay direct object o unsay indirect object. Okay? Now, direct objects answer the question what after the verb, or who after the verb. Okay? What or who. Now, indirect objects answer the question to whom and for whom after the verb. And take note of these questions, ha? Take note of these questions because we will use that one in our example right about now. There. Nakita niyo to example? So we have a sentence with a direct object. The sentence goes, the raccoon climbed the tree. Now, what is the action being done there? The action being done there is the climbed. And who is doing the climbing? The person or the thing doing the climbing is the raccoon. Now, let's ask the question. Unsa ganito yung question sa direct object? What? Okay, good. Let's ask the question what after the verb. So let's say the raccoon climbed what? The raccoon climbed what? The raccoon climbed the tree. So, the tree there becomes our direct object. Okay? Now, for a sentence with an indirect object, unsa ganito yung question sa indirect object? To whom or for whom? So, we have here, excuse me, our example. Okay, there you go. Alright. So, we have here our example with now the indirect object. So, the sentence says, the raccoon threw the deer some nuts. Now, what is the action being done in this sentence? The action being done in the sentence is threw. Very good. Now, who is doing the throwing? Kinsay nagbuhat sa throwing? Ang nagbuhat sa throwing kay si raccoon. Good. Now, the raccoon threw what? The raccoon threw what? Ay, kung na ang deer may gilabay sa raccoon. Di ba, dili? Unsa may gilabay sa raccoon? Ang nuts. Now, unsa ganito itong question sa indirect object? To whom or for whom? Now, the raccoon threw the nuts. To whom? The deer. And that is what we call an indirect object. It answers the questions to whom or for whom. Now, action verbs can be divided into two. Using those things na ato na-learn ganiha, let's use it to identify the difference between transitive verb and intransitive verb. Okay? Now, transitive verbs always has a subject. Naagad na say subject ang transitive verbs. And you can ask the questions who or what using the verb. If you can ask the questions who or what using the verb, then it is transitive. So, yung mga tanong mo who or what, if it does have an answer, it is a transitive verb. Okay? But, if dili gani siya mohatag og answer, if these verbs do not have an object, then it is what we call an intransitive verb. Dili siya manginahanglan og direct object. Let's say, for example, let me wipe myself first, kaya it's very sweaty here. Okay? Okay, let's say, for example, the verb arrive. Okay, I arrived at our meeting place. So, let's ask the question who or what. I arrive who? I arrive what? Does the sentence make sense? Does the question make sense? Diba dili? Therefore, it is what we call an intransitive verb. Okay? Now, some verbs such as escape can be both transitive and intransitive. Now, how can we know if it is a transitive or intransitive? We ask the questions who or what. Just like here in our example below, above naman ako. Okay, see. So we have here our example. The fire destroyed the forest. So we have here the action which is destroyed. Who is destroying? Okay, the fire is the one destroying. Now, the fire destroyed what? The forest. And therefore, destroyed there is a transitive verb. Now, let's go to the intransitive verb. Okay? The animals ran away. The animals ran. Unsa ganito ato ipangutana? Who or what, diba? So, the animals ran who? Or the animals ran what? Huh? It doesn't make sense, diba? So, the verb there, ran, is an intransitive verb. And that is it. Now, let's go to our next type of verb, which is the linking verb. Unsa dining mga linking verbs? Now, linking verbs connect the subject of the sentence to a noun or adjective that describes or renames the subject. Again, it connects the subject of the sentence to a noun or adjective that renames or describes the subject. Let's say, in our example, the rabbits were frightened. So, the subject is rabbits, and the rabbits, unsay description niya sa rabbits? Frightened, diba? And the word we use to connect the two is the word or the linking verb were. Okay, so mauna siya. Mauna siya ato ang linking verbs. They connect the subject to a noun or an adjective in the sentence. Okay? And linking verbs either relate to the senses, so feel, taste, smell, look, or hear, or to a state of existence. So, be, become, appear, or remain. Now, how do we identify a linking verb? Okay, for example, kaning feel, kaning taste, kaning look, pwede man siya ma-action verb. Pero pwede po siya ma-linking verb. Now, how will we know if it is functioning as an action verb or a linking verb? How do we know? So, we use this substitution. Okay? So, we have here two sentences, and these two sentences use the same verb, looked, kana naka-pink. Okay? So, the chipmunk looked hungry, and the chipmunk looked for berries. Okay? So, we have those two verbs there. Okay? Now, asa ani nila ang action verb ug asa pod ani nila ang linking verb. Now, how do we know? How do we determine if it is a linking verb or it's an action verb? We substitute it with is. Mugamit ta og is or any form of the be verb. Okay? And we will talk about the be verb in the next slide. Okay? So, basically is pinaka-basic na ninyo na magamit ang is. Okay? So, we have here, the chipmunk looked hungry and the chipmunk looked for berries. Now, let us substitute it with is. The first sentence will go, the chipmunk is hungry. And does it make sense? Diba? It makes sense, right? Now, let's go to the second example. The chipmunk is for berries. I don't think so. Diba? Dili siya kanang sakto. It doesn't make sense. So, the look there is not being used as a linking verb, but instead it is used as an action verb. And these are the to be verbs or the be verbs na akong giingon sa inyo ha. So I hope you will memorize this one. My students in grade 7 last year knew about this. They know about this. So the be verbs are am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. Okay? And we also have our sensory verbs. Katong akong giingon sa inyo ha. Sensory is katong look, sound, smell, taste, feel, and katong mga verbs of existence. Mao na siya kanang 14 to 21. Now let's go to the auxiliary verbs. Unsa ning mga auxiliary verbs, Sir Kevin? Now, auxiliary verbs or what we call the helping verbs is used before an action or linking verbs to convey additional information regarding aspects of possibility or time. Therefore, it is used before action or linking verbs. Gatabang ra siya sa action or sa linking verb. Dili siya, it cannot stand alone. Kinahanglan na siya kuyog. Kinahanglan na siya paris nga action or linking verb. Now, often called helping verbs, these verbs can be used in front of other verbs. Again, mao ni purpose sa auxiliary verbs, mutabang ra gyud sila sa action or sa linking verb to form tenses, negative sentences, questions, and emphasis. And these are the list of our auxiliary verbs, and I hope you will take note of them. Okay? Now, let's go with our regular and irregular verbs. Sir Kevin, what are regular verbs? Murag karon palagi kadungog ana. Now, regular verbs, this is the most common nga inyong makitaan. They form their different tenses using an established pattern. So, makita niyo ang pattern dira, ang present tense kay na s, ang past tense kay na ed, ang past participle na ed, ang present participle na ing. So, that's it. That's the pattern. But if dili gani siya musunod og pattern, that's what we call already the irregular verbs. And the irregular verbs do not form the normal rules in forming tenses, especially in the past tense and the past participle. If you can look there in our kanang table dira. That is what we call nausab na ang spelling sa ilahang past tense ug sa past participle. Kay if regular verb, for example, if ang break is a regular verb, then ang past tense anang break ay breaked. Unta, break na ed. Diba? But dili man. Lahi man niyang spelling. So, that is what we call an irregular verb. And do not worry, I will be sending you a PDF file of the tenses or the forms, the past tense and the past participles of these irregular verbs. And I want you to memorize them. And my grade 7 students have already know about this and they have memorized. If nag-memorize ba gyud ta mo last year, magamit na ninyo karon na year. Okay? Now, let's go to our verb tenses. Okay? Now, the verb tense, from the word tense, or in Latin, it's certain words in Latin, and then the word in Latin says time. Now, it indicates the timing of an action. A timing of an action which is performed by the first person, second person, or the third person. Lah, Sir Kevin, ako nibaan, first person shooting raman, oy, FPS. Oh, dili na mao ha. Lahi na nga, first person, second person, or third person. Unsa day ni siya? Now, before we make our tenses, mag-form tag tenses, we have to pick the right person. Sana all mo pick og right person, di ba? O, dapat ang gini children, you need to pick the right person. Because we need to identify who is speaking, or who is being talked about in the sentence. Okay? So, the first person is, of course, the speaker. Kung kinsay nag-speak, mao na siya. Okay? And it uses the personal pronouns I. If ako ra usa, for example, ako ang speaker, ako ra usa, I will use I. But if daghan mi nga mo speak, we use we. Okay? But for example, kamo, akong gistoryaan, you are the reader or the listener of this lesson. So, you are the second person of this speech that I am doing right now. And we use you for both singular and plural. So, you. Okay? And the third person, for example, nagstoryata, I am speaking to you right now, and then we are talking about someone else. For example, inyong crush. Oh. So, we address your crush in the third person. Represents everyone and everything else, and uses the singular pronouns he, she, or it, and the plural pronoun they. Okay? So, for the singular pronouns, he, she, ug it, ug ang plural pronoun is they. Now, let's go to our tenses. The first three na atong i-learn is the simple tenses. And these are the basic tenses that you know. Okay? So, we have here the first one is the present simple tense. And the present simple tense is used to express a constant or repeated action that is happening right now. So, nahitabo siya karon. And it can also represent a widespread truth. Okay? So, ang kanang naadira sa kilid is your guide. So, kana siya first person singular, first person plural, second person singular, plural, third person singular, third person plural. Okay? So, inanaon na to siya pag-conjugate. So, for example, if it's a constant or it's a habit nga permi mabuhat or it's a widespread truth, then we use the past tense. And ang ina niya pag-conjugate, I smile, we smile, you smile, he, she, or it smiles. Kay singular naman siya, they smile. Sir Kevin, ganong dili I smiles? It's grammatically wrong. So, why would you do that? Okay? So, anaon na siya. Okay? So, atong example, I smile at the sight of my crush. Sana all mo smile at the sight of her crush. Dili mo makita karon, so, yeah, jokes on you. Okay, so we go with the past simple tense. Unsa ning past simple tense, Sir Kevin? Okay? The past simple tense, okay, there. It expresses an action that began and ended in the past. So, nagsugod siya in the past, nahuman pud siya in the past. Okay? And regular past tense verbs are formed using the base form of the verb followed by ed. So, laugh, for example, laugh, and then butangan natong ed. And then for all the persons, the same ra gyapon siya. I laughed, we laughed, you laughed, he or she or it laughed, they laughed. Our example, I laughed at the joke. Okay? Now let's go to the future simple tense. Now, the future simple tense, lag. Okay, there. The future simple tense is used to express actions that will occur in the future. Mahitabo pa siya in the future. And how do we do this one? How do we conjugate this one? Butangan nato og will, except for the first person I, and optional ra siya nga mag-shall kung mag-we ta. Okay, so bara nang I shall. Ang I shall kinahanglan gyud ang shall. But sa we shall, pwede ra pug we will. Okay? Optional ra ang shall. And then you will cry, he or she or it will cry, they will cry. So definitely they will cry at this movie. So imo pa ipakita nila ang movie, and definitely they will cry. Now the next three tenses that we are going to learn is what we call the perfect tenses. And the perfect tenses refers to actions that are completed over a period of time but have a known end. Now, humana siya over a period of time pero completed over a period of time but have a known end. So, unsa ni sila? Let's find out. Now, the first one is what we call the present perfect tense. Okay? It refers to an action that happened at an unspecified time in the past. Okay? Now, it also refers to an action that began in the past and continues in the present. Nahitabo siya, nagsugod siya sa past, and then nagpadayon siya until the present. And it is formed using the auxiliary verb have or has and the past participle. Okay, again, it is formed using the auxiliary verb have or has, then the past participle. Remember, ang have, gamito nato siya for the first and second person, and then has, gani, para sa singular nga third person. So, we have here, I have disappeared, we have disappeared, you have disappeared, you have disappeared, he or she or it has disappeared, and they have disappeared. So, ato example, she has lived here for 10 years. So, that something, that living there, starts in the past and still continues in the present. Now, we go to the next one, which is the past perfect tense. Now, the past perfect tense describes an action that happened in the past before something else. Again, an action that happened in the past before something else. So, nahitabo, before pa nahitabo ang lain na pud nga action in the past. And it is formed using the auxiliary verb had and the past participle. So, kana siya, puro sa gyud na siya, had. So, I had escaped, we had escaped, past participle man. Then you had escaped, he or she or it had escaped, they had escaped. So by the time the guard noticed, which is the latest action in the past, I had escaped, which is nag-una na action in the past. So ang pag-escape niya, nahitabo una, before nakabantay ang guard. Okay? Next, we go to the future perfect tense. Now, the future perfect tense describes an action that will occur at some point in the future before another action. Again, it will occur at some time in the future before another action. So, naagad si lain nga action di ay. Okay? So, it is formed using the auxiliary verb phrase will have and then the past participle. So, ano yan itong example? He will have offended again before we catch him. So, before nato makatch siya, makasala na pod siya. He will have offended again. So, before, wala pa nato na-catch, but ato pa i-catch. But before pa na nato makatch siya, before pa na mahitabo nga action, nakasala na pod siya. He will have offended again. So, atong conjugation is very simple. Will have plus the past participle. So, will have offended, so on and so forth. Now, we go to our continuous tenses. Okay? And again, if I am too fast, I am, nandiyan na ako giapas nga time. Okay? So, if I am too fast, you can always rewind this video. Okay? Now, we go to the continuous tenses. Okay? The continuous tenses describes actions or situations that is ongoing at a particular point of time. Naagapon siyan, hitabo, what do you call this? It is ongoing at a particular point in time. So, nahitabo pa siya during a time na imong isulti. Okay? It is also known as the progressive tense. Okay? So, mga kung giganihan ninyo, ang continuous o progressive tense are just the same. Let's go to their types. Now, the first one is what we call the present continuous tense. And the present continuous tense expresses an action that is continuing at the same time as something else is happening. So, an action is continuing at the same time as something else is happening. So, nanay nahitabo, pero nagpadayon gihapon siya. So, for example, I am hiding in a tree until it gets dark. Okay? So, I am hiding in a tree until it gets dark. The action hiding is continuing at the same time. Pareha sila og time as it starts to get dark. Okay? And for our conjugation, we use the auxiliary verbs am, is, or are, and then the ing form of the verb. So, I am hiding for I. Dayon, the rest kay are. We are hiding. you are hiding, except for he, she, and it. Kay singular naman ni sila, so he, she, or it is hiding. Now, dili pasabot ha nga, ala, he raman dapat ang gigamit basta is hiding. Kanang he or she, pwede rin na ito mailisan og something else. So, for example, Raymark is hiding. Or for example, Sam is hiding. O, ana siya. Okay? So, it is a continuing action that happens together with something, with another action. Okay? It happens with another action. Now, in the past tense, past continuous tense, it describes a past action that was happening at the same time as another action occurred. Okay? Again, describes a past action that was happening at the same time as another action occurred. So, puro siya in the past, but then, nagpadayon ang usa ka action, then ay nahitabo nga usa ka action. Okay? So, for example, they were asleep when they heard a loud crash. They were falling asleep when they heard a loud crash. So, they were falling asleep. So, nangatulog sila pagkadungog nila sa loud crash. Okay? And we form the conjugation by using the was or were and the ing form of the verb. Okay? So, we have here, I was falling, we were falling, you were falling, he, she, or it was falling, and they were falling. Okay? And lastly, we go to the future continuous tense. Now, the future continuous tense describes an ongoing action that is going to happen in the future. Gapadayon siya, and it will still happen it is still happening in the future. Nahitabo na siya sugod karon. Okay? So, for example, at the end of the sentence, the students will be watching online lectures. So, that means, nagsige mong tanaw na rog online lectures, and it will happen, and that action will still happen in the near future. Okay? So, ana na siya, it will still happen in the near future. And, we form this one by using the will be plus the ing form of the verb. So, will be watching na siya tanan. Will be and then ing form. So, that is our lesson for today. Let's have a recap first. So, first we talked about the summary of verbs, and then the 3 types of verbs, and then the verbs, subjects, and objects, and then the transitive and intransitive verbs, the regular and irregular verbs, the verb tenses, conjugation, which is a simple, perfect, and progressive. Ang kanang perfect progressive, that is a little bit advanced, and I don't think that we will be using that one. Okay? So, I think that would be all. Thank you for listening. Please make sure you answer your exit tickets. Okay? So, thank you everyone, and have a good day. Goodbye.